Beaming to you from the Plastic Microphone Studios, nestled deep in the heart of Cajun country. Welcome to Fave from Fans. I'm your ever enthusiastic, maybe a little overjoyed host, Jamie Ray, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another exciting episode of the podcast dedicated to all things favorite. So let's welcome our guests, and we're going to dive right in to our favorite groovy picks. Today, I've invited Arthur. Well, he's actually a Bram Stoker finalist. Author Matt? I forget what it is. Let me check my notes. Mark Sino to discuss you look so excited.
I put the fine in finalist.
We're going to discuss our fave 80s horror movies. Like I said, Mark is a Bram Stoker finalist, and he actually got an award not too long ago for that. I saw that. That was really cool. I have one of those.
I did. I traded 3 bags of freeze-dried candy, and I was able in exchange to get the elusive Bram Stoker Funko Pop, which now makes me a winner, not a finalist.
You're a winner in my eyes all the time.
Finalist is a fancy word for loser. But Bram Stoker Award loser didn't look so great on book.
I know, So no, I like how you zhuzhed it up a little bit. That was really great.
Sure, show business.
So how you doing, man? You're looking great. I mean, the beard's come in, and it's awesome.
I'm good. I'm doing well. Staying creative. We're about to get into the busy time now with September, October, some in November. A lot of shows to do this year. I took a pretty good break over the summer, and I'm really looking forward now to kind of getting out there and meeting the customers and seeing my friends again, my con family, and just slinging books and talking shop.
There you go.
So
awesome.
Looking forward to it.
You've got the brand new Cannibal Fat Camp hardcover book out now.
Yep, the Pampered Camper edition is out. I think on a podcast we did, I was talking about doing it, and now it's done. It's out. It looks great. I'm happy. Happy it's over. Happy it's over with, and happy I can now focus on some other projects.
Yeah. Anything you want to, release here on the show?
I guess my newest book that will be coming out soon is called The Patch. It is my ultimate love letter to the season of Halloween. It is the Halloween tale I always wanted to tell. It is about a man who is murdered on Halloween night, and he comes back for revenge 1 year later. It's funny. I got the idea. I think it was October of 2019 when I sit outside. I bring my truck down the driveway, and I sit in the bed of my truck, and I just hand out candy from there. And I was just thinking morbid horror author thoughts on Halloween night. I was just like, what if somebody killed me and I came back for revenge? And that's kind of the genesis of the story on Halloween night. And I get to use a lot of great imagery. I was reading the book today because I'm still working on some edits with it. I didn't realize how personal of a novel it is. There's a lot of stuff in there that as I was reading it again, I was like, oh wow. I was like, I went there with some things that you really a lot of things I put in there that were
a lot of Mark in there, huh?
A lot of Mark in there, and it's I'm excited to release something every show. I have so many books to offer, and every show, everyone's like, "What's next? What's new?" And I'm like, "Man, enjoy the ones that are here." And they're like, "No,
what have you done for me lately?
We want more." And I'm like, "All right, well, you're getting something." So that I hope to, hope to get that done in the next couple weeks. At least have it out for October, and then, we were discussing before the show the Cannibal Fat Camp role play game, Escape from Camp Tum Tum, is about to be finalized and ready to go on sale again, hopefully by the end of October. Cool. So now you have a chance to visit Camp Tum Tum and hopefully survive Camp Tum Tum. It is wild. We commissioned art from this totally wacko style artist.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's crazy looking.
Cool.
My brother-in-law Wesley, he really was so instrumental in getting this done. It's his wheel, is his world, is the role play game world.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, I mean, he did so much work with this book. I tried to keep up with him. I helped where I could.
Right.
But really, this game is a thing because of him. And we went through a test play with friends. We finished it in 5 sessions, and I don't think I've laughed harder, every time we played. So it was just great. So yep, that'll be coming out soon.
That's awesome.
Um, expanding on the Little Vic and the Trick or Treat Gang universe. I got the second comic strip coming out.
Yeah.
That's done. New stickers. I just I'm
Just
in.
racking it up.
We're going insane.
Racking it up. Well, I am
Racking it up.
super excited. And I'm super excited for this episode. And I think you're probably more excited than I am.
I don't know about that. This episode's brutal. Like
Yeah.
we should have done Fave 5 from each year in the 80s, and we could have made list. It
Yeah.
is this was brutally hard. There's just no way around it. The
No,
80s,
no.
the
We're
80s
awesome.
was the decade of horror.
Yeah.
My favorite horror movies I think are mostly from the 70s.
Okay.
But overall volume and tone and enjoyment. There was a real joy in the 80s.
Yeah.
And that really came through with the horror movies, of which there are just so many. And they're so relevant today because we're so nostalgic for that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it was very hard for you to get your Fave 5 and your two honorable mentions. So I know how hard you worked on that to get it down. So I really appreciate that.
Day 5 and my 200 honorable mentions. But
And he's not
first,
kidding.
first, if I can start off
Okay.
with a jingle I wrote.
A
I'm not
what?
gonna not gonna sing it,
Oh, thank
but I
God.
think but I think I'm gonna speak it as poetry.
Oh, okay.
So here it is. The first one tailored for Fave 5 from fans for the episode about 80s horror movies.
Can't wait.
Fave 5 from fans, we're diving in deep to 80s horror flicks that'll haunt your sleep. From slashers to screams and monsters galore, we're counting down 5, but we're craving more. Freddy, Jason, and creatures so wild, let's list our top scares, 80s horror style. Fave 5 from fans, it's the fright of the night. Join us for terror, where the screams feel just right. The end. I'm an, I'm an author, baby.
You're you're a poet and didn't know it.
I know, right?
That is awesome. I will cherish. That's going to be my ringtone.
Oh my God.
That's going to be my ringtone.
It'll be your ringtone, but you leave your phone on silent.
Well, all right. So let's go ahead and get ready to dive in after that amazing jingle.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
because I did hear a little birdie told me that you did keep your honorable mentions down to a minimum this time. So that'd be a truthful statement, right?
Okay, so there's 18, but the way I'm going to present it in such a way is that you'll never know that there's 18 of them. The thing with the 80s is that, yeah, you can go ahead and list your 5 favorite films, but it doesn't do the 80s justice for us
Right.
to just name 10 films plus 4 honorable mentions
Right. Right.
with each other. Um, you had you had movies that launched franchises.
Mhm.
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, all in the 80s. You had zombie movies that were so high quality. Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Serpent in the Rainbow, Re-Animator, Night of the Creeps, all deserve to be mentioned.
That's slick. You
You
get it right in there.
you had some of the greatest movies of all time, greatest horror movies of all time: The Shining, The Thing, Aliens, American Werewolf in London. I mean, those are some of the absolute greatest of all times, and I can't. How am I going to make a list with that?
How?
My
Without naming all of them.
my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorite musicals, Little Shop of Horrors.
Mhm.
That's the '80s.
Right?
But then also for something more fun outside of movies, how many famous actors got their start in a horror movie in the '80s?
How many?
Well, five that I listed. So you had George Clooney in
Mhm.
Return to Horror High. You had Kevin Bacon, Friday the 13th. You had Johnny Depp, Nightmare on Elm Street. You had Julia Louis Dreyfus. She was in Troll. And then Patrick Dempsey, McDreamy. He was in The Stuff.
Hmm.
So
And
after
what
all
Jennifer
that,
Aniston? When was Troll? I mean,
Leprechaun was in
Leprechaun.
92.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
92. So yeah, after all that, I couldn't make any honorable mention list. I don't
Yeah.
have any.
Oh, that's a shame.
Just those just those 13 movies and five actors. I don't have any honorable mentions.
Okay.
So
Well, I appreciate you not having a ton of honorable mentions. I mean, you're
I
just
mean,
you're
right.
just a favorite. You're just a
I
favorite.
could have had honorable mentions,
Oh, yeah, but
but I didn't. I just had other things, other topics to talk about.
definitely. Okay.
But seriously, it's like think about that. It's like think about the tone. So someone I had a friend made a really good point of like when does a decade feel like a decade? Because
Mhm.
like the '80s is technically 1980 to 1989, but when
Right.
did it really feel like the '80s? Usually it takes like 85 maybe, 84, 85 like like I think you still had that carryover from the '70s which influenced a lot of movies like The Shining and The Thing that really you can't say those are fun movies. And I feel like they carried over that serious gritty tone
Uh-huh.
from the '70s into the early '80s.
Right.
Um so yeah, I mean Friday the 13th, another one who just and then you think about all the movies that spun off of trying to copy Friday the 13th.
Right.
It's just incredible. It's insane to think what the '80s produced
Yeah.
as far as horror movies.
If not for, that one, we might never have had Jason X. And
Where would we be today?
that would be a true, true travesty.
It's a world I don't want to live in. There's a multiverse out there where it ended at Jason Goes to Manhattan. It's not just a war-torn hellscape where they never saw Jason X.
Ah, I hope I never live there.
No.
Well, all
But
right.
yeah, but yeah. As for me, no honorable mentions.
No honorable mentions. Thanks
Yep.
for keeping it concise. I appreciate that. I can
You're
tell
welcome.
you're really working on it.
You're welcome.
Um, so I'll have two. All right.
Oh, okay.
Um, one that you've already mentioned, is going to be The Thing
Wow.
from 1982.
I had to think about that one with you because I know how much you love that movie, and I
Right.
didn't know if you were going to make a concession to put it on your list
I
as a
did.
fave. It's
And
hard,
I put it in as honorable mention because I talk about it so much.
right?
So I decided to put it in. Of course, it's 1982, like you were just talking about, how it kind of the 70s kind of eked into the 80s. I think this was really one of the movies that really started to make its own uh, place
Hmm.
in the genre, because especially after he'd done Halloween, this was just a totally different story for him.
Yeah.
And of course it goes back to the Who Goes There by the novel by John Campbell, um, another one of John Carpenter's best films, starring just a plethora of amazing actors. um, Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley. Geez, can't say that movie without talking about Keith David. But just really has a really great ambiance and a feel to it, and
Hmm.
you really really get sucked into what's going on and who is the the creature or who isn't the creature, or are there multiples at the same time? So it's you definitely can't have a list of 80s horrors without having the thing on it. My other one is kind of a dark horse. I'm not sure if maybe if you've even seen this one. It's called Dead and Buried
Mhm.
from 1981. Yeah, you familiar with this one?
I think it goes by another name too.
Does it?
I thought it did because I was doing some research and I saw
Hmm.
them name the movie and then they had a different name for it
So I know
also.
Dead Alive.
Right, Dead Alive
Yes.
has a different name, but I thought Dead and Buried.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I got an Anchor Bay version of this long time ago, just in regular DVD, just because I love the cover. You got
Hmm.
that head coming out and whatnot. And the movie's just really, really engaging, and you don't quite know what's going on in it. James Ferrantino pulls in an amazing performance as, the sheriff, the guy who is trying to figure out what's going on. The lovely Melody Anderson from later we'll have her in Flash Gordon,
Hmm.
and a young Robert Englund, who you just mentioned. Freddie will come out later and start his own franchise. But it's a really great story. The use of cameras in the camera is
Hmm.
amazing. You see it from different, angles, and the end is just mind blowing when you really find out what's been happening and what's we're it's revealed to us at the same time that the protagonist learns about it. And
Well,
so
it's
I just love the movie.
what's fun is that Dan O'Bannon wrote the screenplay and he wrote the screenplay for Alien and he wrote the screenplay for Return of the Living Dead. So
Right.
um that already should tell you it's in good hands.
Exactly. He had a huge run there. I mean, those were all within like 5 years probably of each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean that's again the beauty of the 80s. I
Mhm.
mean, you just had people doing it. And they were so I think 80s movies were and like I said, you picked two movies again that were I think one was 81, one was 82.
Mhm.
Really hadn't gotten into that feel of the 80s
Yeah.
where I think the movies didn't take themselves too seriously and they felt fast, they felt fun, they were gory. Um, and I think it was just they were more entertaining because people were more optimistic in the 80s overall as a society.
Yeah.
I don't think they were looking to escape the horrors of the world. So they were able to sit back and just enjoy horror movies more so.
Right.
Um, Also, the 80s, because CGI wasn't where it was,
Right.
you had to rely on practical effects. And because I think you relied on practical effects, these movies have just stood the test of time, but
Yeah.
also everything just looked a little squigglier and grosser and it just looked real.
I cannot
Even though,
disagree.
yeah, it looked real, even though it didn't look real. And that made it, again, enjoyable.
Hmm.
Um, but some of the practical effects are just downright incredible. Obviously, I mean the thing which you just mentioned. I mean, none of that CGI'd. So it's just yeah, I think that's another big reason why 80s movies have kind of stood that test of time.
I
And
agree with you.
the other last point is that you could make a great movie on a small budget
Yeah.
because so many of these movies, a great movie on a small budget with no big name actor attached, could
Hmm.
go to the theater and make millions of dollars just
Right.
because there's such a demand for it.
Yeah. And like you just said, stand the test of time. I mean, all the movies that we're going to talk about, they are just, you can watch them today and put them up against many, many horror movies that have just come out recently. Though I do feel, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, but in the last couple of years, I feel like horror filmmakers are kind of pulling back and saying, you know what, we need to get back to the story. We need to get back to having good effects instead of just splashing blood everywhere. I mean, that gore porn that we had for a while it does
Mhm.
have, some redeeming factors to it, it gets kind of old after a while.
There's not a lot of rewatchability in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing with these movies from the 80s is I think I've seen them I can't a countless number of times, and I
Right.
can sit down and just watch them whenever. They have that rewatchability because I think they're ultimately enjoyable. And movies today, horror movies, there's a lot of great horror movies today, but some of them are so heavy. Um, your movies like Hereditary or The Witch or It Follows or some of the more popular ones that have come out recently are so heavy. I only got one or two viewings in me before it's
Mhm.
kind of like, do I want to subject myself to this again? Or do I want to jam out to Return of the Living Dead with my friends from the 80s
Yeah.
and laugh and go ew and have a great time? I mean, yeah, yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you because like I did see Heredity and not to be mean, but once was enough. And
yeah,
The Witch once was enough and I didn't even like that one. And
yeah.
yeah, the It Follows I don't even want to talk about. I don't understand why that's so highly praised.
Oh,
Um
I loved It
I know,
Follows.
and it's I think it's one of those either or. You either love it or you just want
Yeah.
nothing to do with
It Follows freaked me out just thinking about the idea of like someone who you might know coming after you or standing outside your room or your window or your house and just standing there waiting for you. Just that
it. Yeah.
imagery was enough to make me go, ugh. But they had some others last year. Oh, was it When Darkness Falls or something? No, something Darkness. And then there was another one. I guess I should have done more research before I dived into that
Yeah, you
topic.
should have done more research
Um,
on movies from 2023.
I did none, no research. A lot of movies today, definitely, it's a heavier, more depressing tone, and I think that's reflecting the era of when it was made,
Yeah,
reflecting the mindset of the people making it and writing it. And to be honest, like with everything going on in the world, we don't need depression on the screen.
yeah,
I like it. I can watch it. I can detach, and I can say, "Cool, it's over. On to my life now." It doesn't bother me. But I know way a lot of people who, man, they can't watch depressing things when they have depressing stuff going on.
yeah,
And that just feels like that's the overall tone of movies today. And again, why 80s movies are so even the more serious 80s movies don't have that depressing overall feel to them.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, you're right. You're right. So,
He's
all right.
right.
Well,
He's right.
let's go back. Let's go back to our list, and you give me your fifth favorite horror movie from the 80s.
All right. So I've got five movies, but I've lumped them into three categories under each. So it's 15. No, it's just five. I follow the rules. I don't want to break the podcast. Yeah. Or break the host.
We'll break the host.
I picked 80s movies that felt like 80s movies.
Okay.
They're not like, oh, over the top, rad, cool colors and fun, but they feel like if I named the movie, you would be like, yep, that's a movie from the 80s.
Okay.
So my number five pick is the 1983 movie Sleepaway Camp.
Oh, Felisa.
Oh yeah, well, Felissa Rose, she does the convention scene quite a bit. I have
Yes.
not had a chance to meet her,
Well,
but
she's a dream. She really
yeah,
is.
I see pictures of her. She looks great. Um, and every time I see pictures of her, I'm like, one day
Yeah.
I'll get. Well, I don't want to make it sound like one day day I'll get to meet her. Oh, and you got a picture right there.
Me and Lily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully one day our paths crossing so I can say hello because I mean Sleepaway Camp, a cult classic that probably
Good
has
reason.
one of the best twist ending, shocking endings in movie history, not even horror history. I'd put it up there with movie history, that twist at the end. Um, just a quick recap. Angela, she's a traumatized, introverted little girl who watched her father and her brother get killed in a boating accident. She gets sent off to camp. Murders happen. Um, most ridiculous part of that movie is the camp cook named Artie, and he is so clearly a child predator. And he says the most horrible line where
Horrible
he's like,
thing.
I call them baldies or something. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And then he says it to the guy who's working with him, and the guy working with him just kind of laughs and is like,
Yeah,
yeah, oh yeah,
you
that's just a total,
horrible, Artie.
yeah,
You know who that
yeah.
guy is that he's talking to, huh?
No,
It's
no,
James Earl Jones's father.
no,
Yes.
that's wild.
Yes. And you know, Artie, I've talked about this multiple times. Artie's it's not a death because he doesn't actually die at that point.
Oh, right. He gets boiling
It's
water thrown on him and
that scene just that lives rent free in my brain because
uh-huh.
he really sells that.
So many great kill scenes. You can definitely feel the homage from night excuse me, from Jason, Crystal
Mhm.
Lake, Friday the 13th. Uh
I knew
you
you'd get there.
feel, I mean, I was gonna get there at some point. I was gonna name everything, hockey mask, machete. Um, you really feel, I don't know, maybe it's an homage, maybe they straight up ripped off of it. But you definitely can see how Friday the 13th influenced a movie like that. The deaths are creative, and then of course the ultimate twist at the end, where it's revealed that Angela is not the girl who survived, but the girl died, and the mother, who was crazy,
Aunt,
always, oh, the aunt, I'm sorry, the aunt
Dr. Aunt
always,
Judy.
yes, she always wanted a girl, and she raised her traumatized son as a girl, and kind of a progressive movie. I
It
mean,
really was.
you had two gay dad, you had a gay dad
Hmm.
to start the movie off, and then you kind of had this gender identity issue that you were tackling in 1983.
I know.
Um, I think I read somewhere um, that the Angela at the end was a college kid that they
It,
paid to wear a mask,
that's exactly
and
correct.
that mask is so, dude, when I saw that for the first time, it scared the hell out of me because the mask is horrifying.
Yes.
Angela, I mean, who would obviously Felissa Rose is very pretty.
Right.
Angela is a very pretty girl. Um, and she has the most horrible looking face at the end. And then she lets out these guttural growls and hisses. And
Yeah.
oh, it gave me chills at the time. So
So you know
yeah,
that drunk that college kid who wore the mask, um, they, they had to get him drunk first for him to do that scene.
I, I imagine the 80s were pretty wild with the
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
with the things to get you in the mood to do certain scenes with. But yeah, that is my number five is Sleepaway Camp.
Well, I challenge you to go to YouTube
Okay.
because there is a film made that follows up with Judy, who
Okay.
but has her trauma that she deals with.
I had heard also that they were trying to make another movie somehow. So I
Well,
guess we'll see.
they did because they've got one and then two and three, and then
Yeah.
four never got completed. And then they did the fifth one, which was a return to sleepaway camp, which I think just overlooks all of the stuff in between. No
Yeah,
one
that's
takes the
usually
positive.
it's usually.
But yeah. So anyway, great pick.
Hmm,
I like that.
all
Um,
right.
so when I went to my number five, I really knew that I had to pick a movie from Stuart Gordon. Um, Stuart and Brian Yesdam made some incredible films. They were all very different and unique, even though they all kind of had that same H.P. Lovecraft basis for their stories. But I chose to pick From Beyond in 1986 because I really feel that it epitomized what the 80s were like. Because you had when the resonator turned on and it was all that pink, and you had a lot of sexual energy going on that people didn't quite know what they were doing. Just all of these different things going on where technology was starting to get forward. The computers were pushing it forward. And I love the film. I think Barbara Crampton is probably at her most beautiful in this movie. Jeffrey Combs and Ken Foree turn in some amazing performances in this, and it's just a lot of fun. Um, I, I love it. Again, it's one of these very rewatchable films for me. I've
Mhm.
also picked up a few of the sequels, and there's even a reboot that I watched, and of course, none of them compare to the
No,
original.
great VHS cover.
Oh
Great
yeah,
movie, great movie poster. Again, that was a time, 80s and the 90s with the video rental stores. I mean, the covers of the VHSs were popping. Yeah, another H.P. Lovecraft, adapted story. It seemed like the 80s was the time of H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King of getting adaptations done.
right.
And I think anytime you have Jeffrey Combs and he is such a unintentionally hilarious and entertaining actor
Hmm.
to watch when he just commits to it. And From Beyond is definitely one of those movies where he commits. And
Yes,
yeah, agree with you on Barbara Crampton. She is well, she's made a career for herself. Uh,
yes,
I think if there's a horror movie, she's had a hand in it for sure. But it was interesting. They were able to get, pretty much the band back together, I guess, for with re-animator and From Beyond with
yeah,
Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey and Combs. So
yeah,
it's kind of
exactly.
interesting how they were able to
Um,
do that.
have you seen Jacob's Wife with Barbara
Yes,
Crampton?
yes, yes, with CM Punk and
Yes, I
yeah,
really enjoyed that movie. She did
that
an
one was
amazing
very good.
job.
That actually, I do, like I said, I do my 10 horror movies from each year, and I think that one made like number 9 or 10.
Oh,
I think
it's a great pick.
on thought you were about to say thought you were I was committed to hearing Jacob's Ladder. So when you turned to Jacob's Wife, and I went, oh yeah, I know that one too.
You know too.
Um, yeah, that was a
Well,
it was a swerve. Shoot, I have not seen From Beyond in literally forever, so I'm looking it up right now. It seems to be playing everywhere, so
I just
uh,
watched it like 2 weeks ago.
I know what I'm doing at the end of this show.
Here you go. All right. Well, before you do that, why don't you share with us your number four?
Number 4 is 1988's Pumpkinhead.
Ooh, yeah, Lance Henriksen.
I think I saw this movie for the first time on Halloween years ago. I think I
Uh,
was in college, and to me, it's always now been a Halloween movie, even though it's got nothing to do with Halloween. But because I watched it on Halloween, it is a movie I just think about Halloween.
yeah,
Um, it is the directorial debut of special effects wizard Stan Winston.
right.
You see that in the Pumpkinhead creature he makes,
Yeah,
which is phenomenal looking. That he is at the helm of that. Yeah, Lance Hendrickson, great actor. Obviously, we love him in Aliens
Near Dark.
and Near Dark, and obviously Pumpkinhead, and really he's had such a career that just
Stone Cold.
yeah. I was reading trivia. I was reading trivia, and they said that Lance Hendrickson was about to quit acting until he got the role in Aliens,
Oh,
and
really?
that apparently revitalized his entire career.
Amazing performances. He really
Because
does.
yeah, because I was looking at Near Dark also, and yeah, you've got Bill Pullman and forgot her name, but
Goldstein.
yes, and she played Vasquez in Aliens. You pretty much
Right.
had you had a little Aliens reunion.
Exactly. You know?
But yeah, Pumpkinhead, just Lance Hendrickson plays a widowed father named Ed, and his son Billy is accidentally killed by dirt bikers, just
I, how
college
random.
college kids, I think, just dirt biking along, and silly old Billy just goes and gets in their way, and he gets mortally wounded. I think what makes that movie so sad is that it was an accident.
Yeah.
Um, the guy who kills him, he ends up fleeing, and he turns out to be kind of a jerk. But I mean, I think he's
That's
just
one word.
he's freaking out. He really turns to be a jerk. His friends are kind of trying to say, "Hey, we need to call the cops."
Mhm.
But Ed is angry, and he goes and visits a witch who is named Haggis, of all things.
Ah,
I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on the name of the witch, but witch does a ritual and resurrects a demon called Pumpkinhead. And Pumpkinhead just starts ripping teens apart. And then Ed kind of realizes, and that's what makes this movie so good, is that Ed realizes that this is going too far and this isn't making him feel better
yeah,
at
it's not
all.
bringing his kid back for sure.
Not bringing his kid back and damning his soul, I guess. And then he tries to stop it and then realizes there's a connection between him and Pumpkinhead where they are connected. And if Pumpkinhead gets hurt, he gets hurt, and vice versa. So he takes matters into his own hand to stop it. And then a lot of 80s movies, not all of them, but a lot of them ended on that really high note of like, yay, the heroes win. Not this movie. I mean, he stops it, but then the witch carries his corpse into the graveyard, and Ed gets to become the next Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Um, it's such a good movie, though. I mean, the acting's great. Lance Hendrickson is so believable
Oh yeah.
as a grieving father, but what is just remembered is how incredible that creature looked.
Yeah. You're
So, yep.
That's a good pick. Good pick.
Thank
And
you.
which is interesting because my number four also looks like it's going to end on a good note, and the main protagonist doesn't make it out either. And
Mm,
I'm talking about 1981's The Howling,
nice.
Joe Dante. So this, you want to talk about a cast. Dee Wallace, Patrick McNee, Christopher Stone, Belinda Blasky, Kevin McCarty is in there, John Carradine, Slim Pickens, and a very early appearance by Voyager's EMH himself, Robert Picardo,
Mm,
as Eddie Quist. So it tells the story about, basically from The Howling, about a reporter who is doing a story trying to find this killer, Eddie Quist, and he turns into a werewolf in front of her, in of all places, a sex library room or something. And then they try to convince her that it didn't happen,
mm,
but it did. So they go to this retreat, and her loving husband just is all at Christopher Stone. I think it's who it is, or Dennis Dugan. It might be Dennis Dugan. But anyway, it goes through, and you find out that not only was Eddie a werewolf, but he's actually not dead
mm,
because shooting with silver bullets. And at the very end, when she makes it out, she goes back on TV to tell her story, and to prove to people that they are real, she turns into a werewolf and
mm.
has to be shot and killed. And the saddest part about it is that they show different people in the in the audience watching TV in different places, and everybody think it's just a horror
Yeah,
movie. You know,
yeah.
but this is a great movie. I mean, Dee Wallace has been in some classics. It's had this Cujo and E.T. But I always loved this movie because you kind of felt uh, that you were is confused about what really happened. Did we really see that?
Mhm.
And then just some of the stars like Kevin McCarty and John Carradine just give it this almost unreal feel to it, because you see these guys in so many other things, and so now they're all here together. But I just love the movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's very 80s.
We had like you had some of those older stars now kind of getting that last run in them.
Yeah,
So it was really special seeing a lot of these older actors. It'd be like today, kids seeing like Anthony Hopkins in a movie
yeah,
or Clint Eastwood or somebody, similar in that age range of like, okay, they don't have many in them.
right.
Um, but I'm enjoying it while I can. Another phenomenal movie poster cover that always
Oh
caught my
yeah.
eye, and seeing the claws rip down, the person screaming behind it.
Hmm.
Um, the Howling. They made eight Howling movies.
I think so.
It's
Uh,
like
I
that.
love the
That is,
second one. It's like Howling 2, My Sister is a Werewolf or something like that.
yeah.
But it's got Sybil Danning in it. So, oof,
I
yeah.
just imagine that was like on the script, like write a note, like somebody wrote a note about what it's about, and then they just put that as the tag. Yeah, sure,
Yeah,
okay,
sure, whatever.
Howling 2. Yeah. Um, Again, incredible special effects.
Oh yeah.
Um, all werewolf movies, any of the big werewolf movies in the '80s. That was really, I think, where people think about the transition. My werewolf movie of the '80s is always going to be American Werewolf in London, but
Hmm.
The Howling is. Uh, it's funny. The Howling is a movie that will always have a special place in my heart because I know my mom loved it.
Oh,
So she would always tell me to watch it. Always keep telling me to watch The Howling. So that has a special place because of that. I
that's
always
right.
think of that because of her, not because she's a werewolf.
Oh, okay. Well, I could go either way.
Allegedly. So
All right. Well, let's pop back and what's your number three?
my number three is the 1989, getting towards the end of the '80s,
Again.
Pet Cemetery.
The
One of
original
my
OG.
one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. So many quotable lines that I quote. I quote so many of the lines just in normal everyday life for no reason. I'll tell
Yeah.
my wife that sometimes dead is better. Um, I'll somebody will say something, and I'll say, you don't want to go down that road. Um, it's like Judd did. I mean, the Creed family is a doctor. Lewis is a doctor. He moves his family next to into a house next to a highway where 18 wheelers fly at 1,000 miles per hour.
Yep.
And sadly, his son Gage gets nailed by an 18 wheeler. I don't really think, if I can be morbid, that there would be enough of Gage to be resurrected.
Yeah.
That was just a little kid, and that was a big 18 wheeler. So I hate to put that thought into people's minds, but I don't know. Maybe it winged him. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's just something I kind of thought about. Um,
Yeah, but
well,
you're not
anyway,
morbid. Oh,
yeah, no, I just with this poor little cute kid that gets wrecked by an 18 wheeler. But um, anyway, Gage comes back. Church the cat comes back.
with a
Everything comes
vengeance.
back. Judd told him, don't do it, but he did it anyway. They come back. It's got one of my favorite endings, because Gage kills his mom, Rachel, and then in Lewis's grief, he brings Rachel to the cemetery and buries her. And
Yeah.
then the ending, she comes back and she embraces him. And then you see her holding the butcher's knife and it goes black and he screams.
Yeah.
It was such a great ending. The Ramones had the song Pet Cemetery,
Yeah.
which I think I was reading trivia. I think it was like one of their top hits ever.
Oh,
Um,
wouldn't be surprised at all.
yeah, it was
And
like,
the truck driver is listening to Sheen as a punk rocker.
yes, yeah, and I think I was reading because Stephen King it was like his
Oh,
favorite band.
yeah, it is. Huge fan. But
But
that's a phenomenal film.
I'm leaving out the one who traumatized a generation, and that's Zelda. The Oh my God, Zelda
Yeah, she's
was,
a whole legend, right?
yeah, the legends written about her.
Legend of Zelda. See
But
that.
what links this story
See what you did
is
there.
is that Zelda traumatized a generation with how incredibly horrifyingly creepy. I think it was an actor. I think it was a guy who played her.
You
Um,
might be right.
anyway, she was terrifying. A lot of people just talk about the movie because of that. I think
Yeah.
that is also one of the scariest Stephen King books I have read. I think
Mhm.
whenever anybody asks for a recommendation, I always say Pet Cemetery is one of his absolute best. It is extremely extremely terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, my number three is Pet Cemetery. A lot of people have seen it. They love it. I love it.
But for me, it's always when Gage cuts Judd's uh
Achilles.
Achilles hit tendon.
Yeah.
Oh man, you feel that.
Oh, and then when he shoots up little Gage with morphine, and then he
Ow!
says like, "No fair, no
Yeah,
fair." I'm like, "Too bad,
great,
Gage."
great pick. Well, I'm going to jump all the way back to the beginning to go to 1981, one of my favorite Italian horror films of all time, filmed right here in Louisiana, right down the street from you, talking about Lucio Fulci's The Beyond from 1981, or The House of Seven Doors, I think it may be called as well. Now, are you familiar with this one?
Familiar, yes. I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, you should put this on your list.
I am.
Uh,
I'm looking it up right now.
so it basically starts with this boarding house. Well, it wasn't a boarding house at the time, but it was this big plantation house down on the bayou in New Orleans, or outside of New Orleans. And there's some ritual going on, and people come and they go to kill the guy and everything. And then it jumps forward to a young blind woman who inherits the house, and she's going to turn it into like a bed and breakfast. And she goes out there and with her big German Shepherd dog, which is a class. There's a classic scene where she's standing with the dog on the causeway, and there's no cars anywhere. It's a really great scene and a great shot.
Mhm.
So if you've never seen it, I don't want to give too much of it away, but leave it to say that there's been something waiting in the house, and it's I really enjoy it. I don't want to give anything else away. I think is it still streaming on
Yeah, it looks like it's on Peacock, which I have. So I am going to check that out. Don't you love a topic that you can't talk about? Because I
yeah.
haven't seen it. Sorry, sorry, audience. Um, we
It's
just
very
don't.
atmospheric. It's very Italian.
Mhm.
If you like those kind of films, this is definitely one that you should check out.
I am just yeah. I'm like I've heard of it. I just never had a chance to see it. And also, I really can't believe it's yes, a Louisiana film by Lucio
Yeah,
Fulci.
and it's crazy, but
That is wild.
you'll see a lot. There's some scenes where they're in, I don't know the exactly it's the French Quarter, but they're in New Orleans, and you'll
Mhm.
you'll recognize the place. But that causeway shot, there, it's classic. It lives rent free in my brain.
Do they do the typical Louisiana filmmaker thing where like they're in the French Quarter and then 2 minutes later they're somehow in the middle of a swamp?
No, it's not
No.
that bad. But
No.
the good thing about it is that there's no bad Louisiana accent
Hmm.
because it's Italian, so they have a staple back in the 80s of a group of voice actors. So they don't really, give off that
Right.
weird Wilford Brimley from Hard Target accent, if you know what I'm talking about.
So
That's
it's dubbed?
Yeah, it's dubbed.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
You have to look far and wide to get one that's in original Italian,
Yeah.
because a lot of the actors, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but a part of the cast is American and they speak English, and then another part of them are Italian and they speak Italian. So they dub over the Italian parts, and sometimes in
Mhm.
some of these movies they dub over everything.
Yeah, it's
So
like zombie. It's like Fulci
yeah,
zombie.
exactly, exactly. So
What I like about doing this show is every time I do the show, I come away with a movie that I need to watch that I haven't seen before, and then I get to watch it. I get to experience it for the first time, which is always a fun thing, and I get to discover something new. I did that when we did the favorite found footage films with David
right,
Hayes. I think y'all were on a level, on another level. I'm like, derp, paranormal activity. I think every one of my picks was from like 2008 and beyond. Um, I think you and David had me like, y'all had given me some homework. I think I
Yeah.
watched like six movies because of it.
Good.
Um,
Yeah, I had to go
uh,
back and I had to go and watch the Poughkeepsie tapes
mhm.
and the last broadcast because I'd never seen those.
No, no, I had to watch that. I had to watch that Ghost Hunters one, which
That
was
was a great one.
really, it was so good. And I think I forgot. He had another one I really didn't care for, but I appreciated what it was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Hopefully, your audience also.
I hope so. There's like 19 people out there who are listening to this. Uh,
Jesus, it's
I'll tell you, I just did an almost complete run of the VHS movies and was really enjoyed those.
oh, I
Um,
love those.
yeah,
That's a guilty pleasure. I mean, even if they're not all good, the
mhm,
segments, at least two of them are good
yeah.
enough to carry the movie.
And did you know the succubus from the very
Mm.
first one?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
actually make a movie about that later. I never knew
Really,
that.
I got to hang out with her.
Oh, really?
She was at a small horror convention in Arkansas, and
Oh, wow.
nobody went to it. So
Yeah.
it was like me selling books. You had her, the succubus from VHS. You had Brinky Stevens,
Oh,
who's she was there. There's some other actress, and I'm just going around sitting at their tables with them, and I'm like, "Hey, I wrote a screenplay. Here's the pitch."
you
And then
like
you realize,
movies?
yeah, and you realize that actors, they have no power over getting movies made,
Yeah.
especially sadly the ones that go to horror conventions. Um, so what can you do? But I got to sit down and talk to him, and she was
That's
extremely
cool.
friendly.
Yeah.
So I will never look at the succubus the same way again.
Well, all right. Well, we are at that point now where we are ready for our penultimate choices. I have actually heard that word in two different TV shows recently because we
Hmm.
always do a it's penultimate. Aside from Supernatural, I don't remember what they were, but it's out there. So give us yours
My penultimate choice is 1982's Penultergeist, also known as Poltergeist,
with the lovely Dee Wallace.
with the lovely Dee Wallace, but the lovelier
No, that's not Dee
director.
Wallace.
No, it's not Dee Wallace.
No,
Who
never
is
mind.
that? That's
Go Beth Williams.
and she that pool scene. My lord. I mean,
You know those
yeah,
are
I know.
real skeletons.
Yeah, those are real skeletons. And but yeah, I mean, it was hard to. I mean, I was rooting for her, but
Yeah.
also, yeah, she. I mean, let's talk about one little bit of trivia I didn't know. I knew Toby Hooper was the director.
Right.
I did not know Steven Spielberg wrote the movie.
Hmm.
That blew my mind.
You want to hear
Even to the
something else?
okay,
Their E.T. and Poltergeist are filmed in the same neighborhoods.
yes, and I think Spielberg wrote the movie, couldn't direct it contractually because of E.T.
Yeah.
Got Toby Hooper to do it, but then said that he was on set every day. So people argue how much did Spielberg actually direct the movie, which I think kind of takes away from Toby Hooper, who
Right.
Toby Hooper in his own right is a fine enough director that he could pull that off. Um, but man, maybe there's a reason why Poltergeist just feels so grand and cinematic
Exactly.
and great. Poltergeist is a legitimately scary movie. It's got
Mhm.
so many great scares. You've got the iconic static on the television.
Right. There.
You've got the tree attack with his tree. Thankfully it doesn't go all Evil Dead on the boy, but pulls him out, wants to kill him. You have the clown doll, which
The face
terrified
melting scene.
the face melting scene, and then like you just mentioned, you've got the bodies in the swimming pool. Um, Again, another movie with so many great one-liners. This house is clean,
Yeah.
or what is it? You moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. And who hasn't done that?
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I mean, whatever. But It's a great movie. It's a scary movie, and it is. I mean, it deserves to be up there with the best horror movies,
Mhm.
not just
The
of the '80s,
chairs.
but of all times.
Yeah.
Um,
So many good
Carol
things
Ann,
about this movie.
Carol Ann is such a cute little actress, and you root for her, and it's so horrible when you realize that she died at such a young age from a.
Well, the whole
Just
franchise is cursed. Lily will
yes, and
not watch it.
well, she's. I mean, it's not cursed for her.
No, she has a thing about cursed movies. If
She should.
she knows that there's like deaths and everything associated with it, she won't watch them.
Yeah, but she's got to like star in the movie. We can't get the curse that way.
Oh no.
She needs to watch that program, that series on Shutter,
Oh yeah.
the the one that's called Cursed Films, where they
No, I think she has,
yeah. So like
and that's where
at
she
least
learned a
she.
lot about them.
Oh man, you need to watch your TV time then. But well, maybe one day she'll watch it. She'll be all right, and I don't think curses work. It's not going to be like we were waiting for you, Lily.
Yeah.
I mean, if it does, kudos to Poltergeist. That'll move it into my number one
Right.
all time if it can have that effect. But yeah, I mean, everyone has probably seen it, but the family does the typical family thing where they hey, here's a home we normally can't afford, and I'm sure there's no there's no catch. Young family moves in, three kids, and they just get terrorized by what's in the beginning is an interesting poltergeist that just starts getting more and more
Yeah.
crazy as the movie goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Great pick, sir. Great pick.
Highly enjoyable. I mean, it's just that is one I can watch numerous times.
Very rewatchable. Yeah. No. Well, for my penultimate choice, I'm actually surprised. It is another werewolf movie, but it's one we've already talked about, and that's 1981's An American Werewolf in London.
Hey.
You want to talk about a near perfect film,
Mhm.
all of the practical effects, just him the transformation scene, Griffin Dunn's slowly decaying look, all of the the porn theater where all of the dead bodies are talking to him, especially the young lady who's like, "Oh, hi, you killed us, but it's okay." Um, David
So
Naughton,
much humor. So much
so much,
humor in the movie.
so much. David Naughton is fantastic. Of course, Jenny Agutter
Hmm.
always has a place in my heart. And again, written and directed by John Landis. I mean, the
Yes.
guy knows how to make a movie. Um, and you said so much about it already, how it's chef's kiss pretty much of horror films. It's got to be, I mean, werewolf films. It's got to be one of the best, if not the best. And I don't use the B word very often, but everything about it is perfect.
It's one of those movies that like you think you know what it's about,
Mhm.
and then it just completely goes in that other direction. Like when his dead friend popped up and scared the hell out of me when I watched it for the first time, and he's so gross and destroyed looking. But then kind of wisecracky also,
Yeah.
and you were just like, what is this movie? And he's still a werewolf. They're still going with the werewolf, but they added that other little dimension into it that
Yeah.
just adds so much to it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the fact that there's so much going on, not only physically in him, but also emotionally. He's fallen in love,
Mhm.
with the nurse. And man, kudos to the doctor who's like just not gonna take the police advice report, and he goes out there to the slaughtered lamb to try to figure out what's going on. And the scenes in the zoo, I'll never look at red balloons the same way again. uh
Right.
you know it's just, again, it's a chef's kiss of a
Kind of
film.
has that same ending feel as The Fly, where
Hmm.
like at the end, your main person who has succumbed to being the monster almost sacrifices themselves to to just be put down because they can't
Yeah.
go on this way. It has a very sad ending.
They
It's
want to
not a
save the woman they love
yeah,
from themselves.
it's for a very like gory but funny movie. It really ends on a real sad note.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really makes movies like that special is because they know how to tell a complete story. You know, him and the nurse aren't going to go skip off and be and raise pups together.
Right.
You know, there's going to be an ending to this because he is a monster. Um, yeah, such a great movie.
Yep.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I
Good.
had to sneak it into my honorable mention rant because I do put it up there as one of the best horror movies of all time, and it feels unfair to have made a list of you know what I want to do like because I love obviously doing your show and I love that it gives us a platform to talk about these movies. So
Uh-huh.
with me bugging you to do 1,000 episodes, I want to make sure I never repeat myself because
Okay.
I want to talk about a new horror movie.
All
It's
right.
like I stayed away from zombie movies because we could have done the zombie podcast. Like my legitimate number one is Return of the Living Dead.
Oh,
I mean, come on, that is like the greatest '80s horror movie probably ever for me. But it's not going to be the number one because I've already talked about it at length. I want to talk about other movies. I want to highlight other movies, and you give me 30,000 honorable mentions to play with. So
give you? No, not necessarily.
so I'm in honorable mention land, just having a blast until we got to get back on topic. But yes, that is
Uh,
American Werewolf in London. I debated should I put it on the list, and then I said, you know what, Jamie, let me sneak that in.
he's a pepper. Of course, he's got to be on the list.
Yes, yes, the slaughtered lamb. I mean,
That's it.
I mean, you've seen that brought up a million times, parodied a million times. I mean,
And I love that Rick Mayall is in that from the Young Ones. You know,
mm-hmm.
he's one of the guys in the Slaughtered Lamb. And
What's the famous line everyone says? Like,
they off the moors.
stay off the
Stick to the
moors. That's it.
road.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
like that '80s movies have iconic lines.
they do. They do. That and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, and Arnold Schwarzenegger when he did '80s movies or any movie.
Yeah. I'll be
Arnold
back. Get to
Schwarzenegger,
the chopper.
his is just normal speaking dialogue, and
True.
everyone loves it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going grocery shopping. It's like, yeah, I'll
Have
make
you
you say.
gotten the mail? My buddy Cam Sully from the Jacked Up podcast, he does an excellent Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mhm.
Uh, so all right, well, enough about that. We are
Enough
now
about Arnold.
yeah, we are now at the head of the heap. We are at your number one, your favorite 80s movie that you picked today for this list, but now tomorrow it might be something else.
I have such movies to show you. My number one is 1987 Hellraiser,
Excellent choice.
written and
I love me
directed,
some Clive Barker.
written and directed by one of my absolute favorites, Clive Barker. I don't even try to pretend like he's an influence when it
Mhm.
comes to writing
Oh yeah.
because he's on a completely different level of writing. I can't write like Clive Barker. He writes absolutely beautifully. Um,
Tapestries. Literally.
yeah, yes. The Hellbound Heart was, something I read a while ago, and that is what influenced Hellraiser. And yeah, the world he created with the Cenobites and the Hell Priest, who would be dubbed Pinhead, who would become a major, major horror icon.
Oh yeah.
Um, Clive Hellraiser is a just sadomasochistic nightmare where these other beings have gone so beyond pain that they find it pleasurable and they no longer can really tell the difference between pain and pleasure. They're travelers, angels to some, demons to others. They are. It's just it's so well written. It's so sexual, it's so violent, it's so gory. It is just, I mean, the characters in it are sleazy, with the exception of like Kirsty and her dad, who
Mhm.
has a horrible his wife he's trying to make his marriage work with. And Jesus, talk about like he's this what's his name? Frank. He's not winning Brother of the Year awards
No,
either.
no.
He is horrible in literally every way possible. But Kirsty summons the Cenobites, and Frank is he gets his comeuppance. The
Nice
Cenobites try.
suit. It's a nice
Yes,
suit.
good suit, good fitting suit. Um, one of the best memes ever came from that, where they have like the bloodied Frank, and he's just pointing to the wall, and it says, "I'm in hell." I think I've sent that so many times when I'm like subjected to something I don't want to listen to or look at. Um, it's just such a great movie. Another one that has spun off like 15
Yeah.
sequels and remakes and reboots and everything, but nothing can compare to the first one, to Doug Bradley, to the original Cenobites, of the Chatterer and Butterball and the female Cenobite. And they're all so interesting and horrifying looking. Just so pure vintage Clive Barker.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be, I think, my number one, and I'm okay with that. Hellraiser.
Because I was reading Clive Barker when I was young. I mean, I was like, what these were coming out in the early 80s, I think.
Mhm.
And one of the stories in Books of Blood has always stayed with me. Do you remember? It's called "In the Hills, the Cities," and it's
I've
it's a
heard of it.
story about these two. It ends up being two gay men, Mick and Judd, who are out in like the hills of Yugoslavia, and they're having like a picnic, and they end up showing their love for each other, and then these two villages make giants of each other, and they go to fight. And that was one of the first things that ever kind of exposed me to a different type of story, and the imagery that it gave you of these people just getting on and like putting belts together and making legs and making the torsos and everything. That's one thing, but at the same time, the way he presented that relationship, it wasn't even, you know, it wasn't the focus of the story. It
Mm-mm.
was just happened to be that these two individuals were of the same sex and had a love for it. It was a romantic and whatnot. Um, and I remember thinking, wow, that's amazing to be able to take those things, because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes you'll have it shoved in your face. And
Right.
I thought that Clive had an amazing way of making characters come alive, in your brain, even for a short little story like this. Um, like I said, for I don't know, 40 years now, that story has stuck with me. And the image of those two hulking giants kind of just coming at each other and people falling off, and it's like, wow, how do you even come up with that? How do you come up with the Cenobites and all of those things?
Yeah.
Um,
His mind works in ways that I can't comprehend. He is such a creative force.
yeah, he really is. And
I've
he's
en-
an artist. I mean, this is
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
a program from an art gallery that he did a show at, and it was all of his art, because he would
Mhm.
later books, he would do all of the art covers and stuff for it. And it just amazing to me, somebody has all of this talent in them, and he's just such a nice guy. Every interview you've ever seen, he's very soft spoken. um just just a
He
great guy.
he he did a convention appearance recently, and that made me feel good because I know he's been very sick. I know he's got ailments. He almost died several years ago from like a tooth abscess, I think.
Yeah, crazy.
Um, so like yeah, something totally crazy. I think he was like in a coma after like a dental procedure. Um, but he actually, some friends of mine posted a picture with him at a convention all of a few weeks ago.
Really?
So he's doing something. So God, I hope
Was it
one
in the
day he and
U.S. or in
yeah,
Europe?
yeah, no, it was in the US.
Really?
It was some major horror convention recently. So I'm hoping I get a chance to definitely meet him and let him know what a inspiration and icon he is to the
Yeah.
horror genre, to the literary genre. I'm still waiting for a great film adaptation of The Thief of Always.
Oh
That
yeah.
that's one of my favorite
Read the
Clive
comic
Barker books.
adaptation.
I haven't, but I heard there was one. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping one day there'll be a film adaptation because that's a beautiful and wild story.
Oh yeah.
But I have all the Hellraiser movies I could want and more. No
And
shortage of.
Hulu has one, and
The
yeah,
Hulu one was actually pretty good.
I did enjoy it.
I like the Hulu one. But geez, man, they think was it the second or the third one? Um, they have a Cenobite that shoots like CDs.
It's the
It's like
third one.
they just went so like okay, we don't care anymore. Let's make this wild. I think about Pinhead like with his like hand like in his face, just like
Yeah.
oh god, like y'all are
I
embarrassing
saw
me.
I saw a picture once, I mean a drawing once where I think it was like Cracked magazine or whatever, and it's where horror people have different jobs. And Pinhead was a host at a for parties, and he had like hors
Hmm.
d'oeuvres stuck on all of them, and he's just walking around. Hors d'oeuvre? Shrimp? Uh,
That's how Pinhead would get me.
yeah, exactly.
I'd be like, wait, are this coconut shrimp? All
Oh,
right, let's
we
give
have
this a
such
whirl.
pastries to show you.
Yes, yes, we have such pies to
Uh,
show you.
all right. Well, let me cap it off here by sharing my favorite horror movie from the 80s for today, maybe different for tomorrow, but it is Dan O'Bannon again, both director and screenplay, working with John Russo to take the Night of the Living Dead into a different vein, a different direction than George wanted to go. And they came out with Return of the Living Dead in 1985. You've got some amazing performances by Clu Gulager, James Karen, Don Calfa, Leanna Quigley as Trash is iconic.
She's not trash.
No, she plays
Character's
Trash.
trash. She plays trash. But yes.
And then one of my favorites is Alan Troutman as the Tar Man zombie. That
Mhm.
guy, I mean, that was an amazing makeup again, all about the practical effects. Um, Fun story, lots of trivia to that movie, lots of Easter eggs that you have to get on after 20 watches, you'll still pick up something that you didn't realize they meant to do. uh, Bert, I'm not Bert, Ernie's music that he's listening to when they break in on him. It's like some German uh, march song. And
It's like
was he a Nazi?
he was definitely a Nazi.
Yeah.
Um, I had lunch with my good friends Peter and Brandy, who run Booties Apparel.
Oh yes.
Um, they are awesome people, and we had lunch a few weeks ago. They had never seen Return of the Living Dead, and they watched it because of our podcast we did, and about how much I went on and on about Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
So I was so jealous that they got to experience that
Experience
movie
it.
for the first time. Peter told me he was watching it. He got about 5 minutes in, and he went like, "Oh shoot, I need to call in Brandy because she's going to want to watch this." And they watched the whole thing, and they absolutely loved it. And what made that so great was we were eating lunch, and she was telling me how much she loved the character Bert.
Mhm.
Um, and then that's when she that was her favorite character, and I said something like I'm like even the fact that no he wasn't, it was Ernie. Ernie was the
Ernie.
Nazi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ernie, her favorite character was Ernie, and she was like, that's my favorite character. And I'm just like, yeah. I was like, it's kind of funny though that your favorite character would be the Nazi. And she's like, the
What?
what? Oh, and then I had to go through all the little
Oh,
Easter eggs that she missed, and she was so like, oh my God. And then of course they had to go back and they had to rewatch it to catch all those things.
And to catch that
Um,
it's Bert and Ernie in the movie.
Bert and Ernie the Nazi,
Yeah.
which I don't know which axis of evil Bert was
Yeah.
in Sesame Street. But anyway, I can't say enough about the movie. We could dedicate a whole hour to talking about it. This is the real number one 80s movie. I don't have the guts to do it. I'm glad you did. I had a feeling you would. I had a feeling you would do it, and I was like, yeah, okay, great. He's going there. It is literally the 80s in a snapshot.
It really is. And one of the greatest memes of all time, every July 4th rolls
Yes.
around. 450, was
Yes.
it 4:59 Eastern time?
Yes.
Boom.
Yes. Every time.
Every
A
time.
wonderful Fourth of July movie that
Yes. Yes, it is.
ends in fireworks.
It really does.
Yeah, I would recommend people haven't listened to it, go back and listen to our episode about non-Romero zombie films. We obviously dive into it a lot more there. Um it's one of my all-time favorite zombie movies, horror movies. It is just a such a well-written, fun, gory. Again, it really encapsulated, I think, all those points I made in the beginning about what made 80s movies so special.
Yeah.
And I think that is it is all encapsulated in Return of the Living Dead. From the soundtrack, from the vibe, the hairstyles, the clothing. Um,
Special
my favorite
effects.
scene is just like the group walking down the street, and they look like they're from the Breakfast Club. And
Yeah.
it's like we need every 80s stereotype in a friend. They're all friends for some reason.
Yeah.
Um,
People just don't understand me.
oh God, I was just about to quote that.
I
This is the lifestyle. Oh,
just want to party.
Trash is taking off her clothes again. Love it. Love it. Great,
And
great number one.
more
Great pick. I was
cops.
I was wondering, I was gonna be shocked if we had any crossovers in our fave fives.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been something if we did, because there's
Well,
hundreds of movies.
it would have been more amazing if, both of us had only had five. But when one of us has 35 and the
Well,
other has five, there's
what can I
more
say?
likely.
With me, you get value. So you
It's
can
about the quantity, not the quality of this
yeah,
show.
yeah. I mean, you can have your boring guest come on and give you five movies like, a corporate stooge they are. Or I can come on here and say, cool, here's my
Oh,
37 honorable mentions. And here's another category of Fave 5 actors who got their start in horror movies.
hey, look over here while I tell you lots of stuff.
Right. I should just be like, Jamie, you can go if you want to take a break for 15 minutes. I'm going to take the show over for a little while. Oh,
Oh
man.
man, you making my jaws hurt.
Oh, it's been a while. I'm
Oh,
glad to be back on the show.
good. Me too. And I'm so happy to see and happy to see that you're flourishing. You write some amazing stuff. You're a great author and an okay guy, but really, you're talented, and that's what you should go with. Lead with
I,
that.
I
You know.
try. I tell everyone. Tell everyone how talented I am. They just, at some point they'll listen.
Oh,
Well, I am just having a really, really great time. Somebody asked that there's a group for writers on Facebook, and somebody asked, like, what's advice you wish you could have given yourself years ago? And oh man, I wish I could have told myself 10 years ago, start doing conventions, start
yeah,
doing the convention scene. You'll meet great people, you'll get your work out there, and you'll just have the time of your life. And that is
I agree.
so far so good. I haven't had a bad one yet, and I'm looking forward to doing so many more uh, for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you in RetroCon in not too
Yeah,
long. Not too long.
September 14th, I
Yeah,
think. If
that's
anyone is
probably right. It'll be about 2 weeks after this comes out.
for the 19 people, probably less now, listening. Yeah, I think let me check the date really quick. Yeah, it is September 14th and 15th in Morgan City.
That's it. It's going to be
I
a great
think
show.
it's going to be like over 100 vendors. There's going to be guests. I'm a featured guest this year. Um, that's going to be fun. I'm waiting for the announcement to come out, but I'm going to be a featured guest at St. Tammany Comic Con.
Oh,
So I'm still waiting for that announcement. I will also be a featured guest at Cosplay Con. That is in October. It's a little it's a their first convention.
oh, cool.
And they really reached out to me on. I think they saw all my posting during Cult Classic, and they were like, "Oh, this guy must be someone." And
That's
boy, are
some
they going
great
to be.
marketing, though.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they're going to be surprised
Yeah.
when they find what they get. I think I'm ready for my diva era. I'm
Excellent.
ready. I'm ready to just, I might do that to Davey. He's the first one I can get away with it with RetroCon.
Give them a rider list before you show up.
Yeah, like I only want green Jolly Ranchers,
Yeah.
and there's a blue one. I'll get Everett. I'll
Yeah.
sue him.
That's it.
I'll just I yeah, I'm just so incredibly I don't know. Not I can't say lucky. Because I do think to an
Persistent.
extent. Well, I think one makes their own luck. I think I just so happen to have the right stuff at the right time, and I guess maybe the way I write and the stories I come up with, they seem to be very much enjoyed. And there was no bigger I don't know, no bigger thing than Cult Classic Con, which was a few weeks ago, when people came to the show and told me they came to see me, or they bought a book at another show and they came to buy a different book, or
Cool.
that is, as a writer, that is such like a humbling and incredible feeling to know that. Cool. There are people out there who are in the Mark Sino fan club that own a copy of each of my books right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there are people out there that are completing the set. So I mean, that is just oh, it's a great feeling. It's a
Well,
great feeling as a creator, and I'm just
deserve it.
incredibly blessed and happy to share this passion.
Good. Well, we can't wait for Patch to come out. That's going to be awesome.
Yes, that I'm looking forward to.
All right. Well,
Well,
we
that's
always
it.
talk about what we're going to do next, and we've already decided what we're going to do next, correct?
I'm gonna read my next five movies that I just have came up with. Number, what movie we didn't mention that I
What's
think
that?
is pure 80s is Terror Vision.
Oh yeah.
Terror Vision is one, it's funny, it's campy, and it literally is a snapshot. It is so 1980s. And wasn't Chopping Mall? Did that kid had to have
Oh,
come out in the
gotta
80s.
love that movie. Another Barbara
Um,
Crampton, and it has Tabasco sauce in it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's just oh my God, there's so many movies.
So many Dick
Oh,
Miller movies.
we need to go back. We need to do Fave 5 from each year of the 80s. We need
All
that. We
right.
need a deep dive.
Okay. I'm down for that.
I'm looking forward to also us doing an episode on our favorite slashers that do not
Yes.
include the big five, which I would say is Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Chucky, and Leatherface.
Yeah.
So that'll be challenging. And then I think you even said you're going to then yeah, I'm going to get a PhD after this one. I have to defend my thesis on why I picked this person and why they're considered a slasher.
All right.
I guess throw Ghostface in there too. Well, that feels like cheating. No Ghostface either.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good.
Let's make this harder.
Yeah, the title will just be like it'll just keep scrolling the entire time you're listening to it.
You can be lucky in that I will not have 40 honorable mentions. I will very much stick to your format.
Well, all right. Well, let's get to it, man. We got stuff to record.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in a few weeks. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to make this list of 74 of your favorite movies from the 1980s.
What you said list 80 movies.
I totally misunderstood what you meant.
Totally. I like that. That's 80s. That's
Yeah, and
80s
to
lingo.
all of you out there in the podcast universe, thank you for sitting and listening to us ramble on and on about the greatest era of horror movies, and that was the 80s. We really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It's a free way that you can help to grow the show. If you like what Mark is doing, you can go to October Nights Press and look for all of his books or come find him at a con. He would really enjoy that. And if if you like our show, please tell some friends about it. Get the word of mouth. That's the best way to grow our show. And maybe you can interact with us on Twitter and find us at Fave, the number 5 from fans. Mark and I are always on there talking about stuff. New episodes come out every Friday, so be sure to subscribe so that you catch them all. And I guess the only other thing to say would be remember, folks, it may not be the best, it may not be the most popular, but if it's your favorite, that it's good enough for us. Thank you for joining us. Mark, take us out.
Stay rad, stay tubular, stay totally 80s. Thanks, everyone.
Guide me with a spoon.